This happened to me about 4 years ago. A friend of mine was really sick, so I went to visit her a few times at the hospital. The last time before she passed away, I went to see her at the hospital again, and she couldn't recognize me. She glanced over a few times and asked me who I was. I told her my name, but at this point she was really weak. So she nodded and told me that she was very tired and for me to not mind her sleeping. I probably stayed there for less than half an hour, because after she went to sleep, I left. A few months after she passed away, I went to her funeral. I had just gotten there and I decided to use the bathroom first before going into the viewing room. Since there were a lot of people and kids hanging outside the hallway, I didn't feel the need to be scared. I got done doing my business and I got up to flush the toilet when I heard a soft tap directly behind me, and then the bathroom lights flickered off. At first, I thought that someone had came in and turned it off by accident, but the door never opened. It was pitch black. I couldn't find the latch, so I started to panic, seriously hollering for someone to come and open the door for me. At this point, my heart started racing so fast, like it was going to pop out of my chest. I was screaming at the top of my lungs and no one heard me. When I got the bathroom stall opened, I felt my way around the dark to find the main door. I think I scared myself more because I was thinking about all the caskets in the room down the hallway. It seemed like forever, but it was probably less than 2 minutes in reality. Eventually, I finally found the doorknob, and I opened it to see a group of girls. They rushed in to use the bathroom and stopped to ask if I was alright. I honestly couldn't even speak. They probably thought I was crying because of the funeral. The entire evening, my body was trembling. I was totally out of myself for a while. My parents offered to hoop Lee and call my soul back, but I didn't want to do anything with the superstitious stuff. Anyways, I was told that the bathroom probably had a sensor light. I'm not too sure though. Why would they install a sensor light in the woman's bathroom? Honestly, I hate those sensor lights. Like, have you ever gone to a gas station and you need a dump, alright? And then, you're dumping in the middle of your dump, the lights go off and you have to move around in your toilet. That's personally never happened to me. I heard the story from my friend. But yes, screw those sensor lights in the bathroom. Speaking of funerals, a couple of incidents happened while I was at my dad's. Ever since the rumor started about Hmong vampires, a lot of Hmong people, whenever they would do funerals, would cover up half of the coffin with a plastic or glass sheet. Well, for my dad's funeral, that's what we did. The first day of my dad's funeral, one of my sister-in-laws was watching the coffin. Well, out of nowhere, she started to see this little bug fly all over her face. It wouldn't roam anywhere else but her face. She looked into the coffin and there was a fly inside of the coffin. She got some elders and they removed the fly and made sure that nothing else would get inside of it or past the plastic sheet. A couple of hours later, she started to feel these small little needle-like stabs on her lower right leg. She didn't think much of anything until she remembered how she was lectured about watching the coffin since she was a daughter-in-law. She got some elders and they checked all over my dad's coffin and found a tissue paper that was inside the coffin, and it was by his lower right leg. Those events happened on the first day. Nothing really happened on the second or third, but a couple of incidents happened on the last and final day. As we were laying my dad onto the ground, it kind of got stuck. The coffin got stuck. They had to pull him back up, and when they looked inside, there was a big rock on his side. They had to call those cemetery people and they had to take it out. Well, they tried it a second time and still the coffin would not go down. The elders started to discuss what the heck was going on until my sister-in-law realized that maybe he wanted his dentures to take into the afterlife. Our pastor, who was a major impact on my dad's life, told my dad that my sister-in-law already went and grabbed his dentures and for him to wait another time so that he could go peacefully. They tried to set down the coffin again, and this time he fit right into the ground. While that was happening, the sun was burning high in the sky and there was this black shadow that was flying all over us. A couple of us looked up and saw nothing, just the sun and the open blue sky, but you could see that there was a bird or shadow of something flying around. There's this one country road in town where everyone frequently travels to work or the other towns surrounding in our small town. It's reportedly haunted, especially around this one place surrounding a huge rock in the middle of nowhere. At the end of that road, there is a railroad where about 4 people have died getting into accidents with the train, and along the side of the road, there's many of those little crosses. My little brother worked in the next town and usually travels down that road. He worked second shift and doesn't return until 12 or 1 o'clock in the morning. The drive is approximately 30 minutes if you go fast. Usually around that time, there's no cars running on that road, only 1 or 2 at the most. So he was surprised when he saw lights up ahead. When he got close enough to see it, he saw that there was a recent car accident between a minivan and a truck. There were tons of smokes and the minivan was crushed beyond word. One person had crawled out and was sitting by the side of the road, cradling a small toddler, blood running down her face and soaking her stained shirt. Another little girl was standing by the woman's side, hugging a small teddy bear with blood on her arms. He parked further up and dialed for police help. As soon as the dispatcher heard where the accident was located, she described the scene perfectly to my brother and told them that about once a month they would receive a call telling them that there was an accident there at that exact same spot. Then she hung up on him. My brother thought it was weird and glanced up at the scene. There was nothing there. No cars, no woman, and no kids. It was as though it was just an illusion. But what he did see was a big white cross and 2 smaller ones. There was also an old, small teddy bear at one of the crosses. Late one night, my little sister was on the laptop in the living room. During this time, I used to go out a lot and stay out very late, so she would always wait for me to come home, usually from 12 a.m. to 2 a.m., so she could open the doors for me. Well, that night I wasn't going to come home, so I called her and told her to not wait for me. She was still using the laptop when she noticed that the coffee machine turned on and started to make coffee by itself. In order for the machine to work, you need to push a combination of buttons, so she walks over to the darn thing and noticed that the plug wasn't even plugged in. My sister got scared but stayed calm. She decided to ignore it and started to walk back to the laptop when the kitchen blinds flew off the window and hit the door leading into the garage. She just took one look at it and went back to my brother's room to stay with him. I asked her if she was scared when this all happened, and she replied that she was, but she didn't want to show whatever it was that she encountered that she was scared, so she just calmly walked away. Do you want weekly bonus stories as well as exclusive content? Well, check out the link below at patreon.com/HmongChronicles. Here's the next story. So, I have a lot of nephews. 2 are married. One has 2 kids and the other one doesn't. We'll call the one with kids Aaron and the one without kids Brian. Aaron's wife taught her oldest child, who is almost 2 years old now, what to do whenever she saw a ghost. She told her daughter that if she was ever to see a ghost, for her to put down her lower eyelids and say, meow. Kind of stupid, right? I kind of thought so. Well, this past Saturday, my sister-in-law and her daughter went to do their income taxes. The daughter wanted to use the bathroom, so her mother took her. They were in the stall, and the daughter was yapping away. All of a sudden, she stops and pulls down her eyelids and says, meow. The mother freaks out and tells her to stop. She grabs her daughter and flushes the toilet and runs out the door. Just a couple of weeks ago, Brian's wife's grandpa passed away. They had this little cousin who was almost 3 years old that the grandpa usually babysits. Well, a day or so after the death of the grandpa, they asked the almost 3-year-old cousin where the grandpa was. The 3-year-old pointed to the closet and said, "Grandpa's right in there." They all took a look, but nobody was inside the closet. He kept on pointing at it and said that his grandpa is there. Kind of freaky if you ask me. Gosh, kids are so weird, man. Kids are creepy. When I was a teenager, my cousins and I used to love playing with the Ouija board as well. One day, we all gathered at my cousin's house because they were doing a jingle bell. It lasted all day into the night, so we went into her bedroom and started playing with the Ouija board. At first, everything went well, We called a couple of spirits and then sent them back. Then we started talking to a new spirit. We asked it what its name was, and it spelled G. So we were like, Gus? Then it finished spelling out H-O-S-T. Ghost. This scared the crap out of us, and we put it all together. I still get freaked out about it to this day. Anyways, we all sprinted out of that room. What's really weird is that after that, some of the little kids claimed to have heard crying coming out of an empty storage room right below the room that we were playing in. The parents had to do a spirit sweeping ceremony that night to cleanse out spirits. I never played the Ouija board after that ever again. My aunt came over to one of my cousin's house and they all decided to play the Ouija board game. Well, they bought the board from Toys R Us and they played it. They met a dude that was killed in a car accident, and it liked my aunt. Soon they grew tired of the game and they asked to leave. Everybody was chilling in the living room when they noticed that my aunt wasn't with them. They went into the room and saw her huddled up in the corner, giggling and having a conversation with somebody. She was whispering and they asked her who she was talking to, and she said that it was the dead cute guy from the game. They all got freaked out and returned the game. She later became so obsessed with the Ouija board that she would play by herself. She would also play on the internet, and then she started to go insane and seeing stuff. She told her mom that a dead guy lives in her closet, and at school she would freak out and claim to see dead body parts around her in the classrooms and dead people stalking her. She tried to commit suicide a few times, and her mother had to stop her. I don't know if they did jingle bells on her, but she got better. After all that, the OGs would warn us about the board game. I never played it and never will. Paranormal stuff with the Ouija board is already enough for me. Should ask for a refund. Bring it back to the store and say that this thing works too good, so you need to refund it. Anyways, don't play Ouija boards. This happened a while back in California. There was a bunch of little kids playing marbles in front of my parents' house with my little brother. One of the kids lost his marbles to my little brother, so this little kid asked his other little cousin to borrow some marbles so he could win his marbles back. Well, he didn't, and they both ended up losing all their marbles to my little brother and his friends. The other little kids went back home, and that's when the problem starts. The two little boys were cousins. The younger cousin had recently went to the local corner store and stole some marbles, but didn't tell the bigger cousin that he had more. The older cousin went to his dad's room and took out his dad's 12-gauge shotgun and pointed it right at the little cousin and demanded him to give him back the marbles that he stole from the store or else he'll shoot. There were other kids in the house at the time, and there were no parents or adults. The only one who was old enough was their 13-year-old daughter, who really couldn't control the situation. The little cousin refuses, and the older cousin pulled the trigger. Bang! Point blank to the little cousin's face. He passed away instantly. Half of his face was gone. They had to do a closed casket for the young boy. He was only 10 years old at the time. Soon after that, the family moved out of the house, and from what I heard, everybody that had moved into that house don't live there really long. The longest someone had lived there was for 6 months, and they would eventually move out. One day, my uncle decided to go and talk to the owner of the property and ask him why all these people keep on moving out of the house. The owner of the property replied every night that when they go to sleep, they would hear a big bang in the living room that sounds like a gun, and to this day, people will move in and out within less than a year. I don't know why that is. Man, that's a tragic story. My grandma told me this story when she came to visit us a long time ago. This happened in Laos. She said my dad was still an infant toddler at the time, and she would carry my dad on her back to go tend the farm. Well, this particular day, she decided to also take her mom, my great-grandmother, along with a little puppy on a leash. Anyways, it was getting dark and they decided to go back home. You guys probably know that the farms are usually quite far from the village and people would have to go through the woods before arriving at the farms. My grandma and her mother were walking on a dirt road in the woods on their way home until the little puppy started whimpering and stopped walking. My grandma didn't think much of it and dragged the puppy along with them. Then, her mother stopped and said to my grandmother, "Hey, isn't that Auntie Mai?" as she pointed to the trees into the woods. My grandma looked up and didn't see anything. She then said, "What are you talking about, Mom?" Her mom replied, "Right there, don't you see her?" My grandmother looked up again and saw that a banzong was hiding behind a tree, and basically, as my grandmother described it, was playing peekaboo with them. That's when my grandmother told her mom that that is not Auntie Mai, and I guess the both of them understood what it was and that it was a banzong and took off running in the other direction. After that, my grandmother got really sick and they have to do jingle bells on her, which she eventually recovered from. I remembered when I was a kid and the Ouija board was so popular. We even watched the movie and it was scary. During that time, the show Beyond Belief was airing and it had a Ouija board scene, and it turned out to be a fact. As kids, we would make Ouija boards out of paper and play it at school and outside of my cousin's house. We used a key ring as our magnifier and had some good times playing around, never knowing if my cousin moved the ring or if it had moved by itself. If there was a ghost moving our ring, he must have thought that we were just some useless people trying to talk to it because we were laughing and joking, so much so that if the spirit was evil, they would probably rather die. We felt as though our spiritual energy was too strong to be attacked, so nothing ever happened to us. But something did happen to my friend's brother when they played it at their house. The next day, after they had played the game, their little brothers were everywhere. One was outside, the other was under the bed, and another was in the living room. This board game is not a joke, but one secret to stopping the game is to never play it in the first place. No one really knows what happened to the brothers, but supposedly they had summoned a strong entity through the Ouija board and had to get a shaman to come and help them get rid of the spirit. For years to come, the brothers had always talked about the Ouija board and how you should never play it. When they had kids, they warned their children to never play it and would get mad if any of them mentioned the Ouija board at all. Safe to say, don't get involved with Ouija boards. Yep, we know. We know by now, but some people just don't learn their lesson,